In this episode of the Think Wildlife podcast, we shift our focus to the Eastern Ghats. I speak to Murthy Kantimahanti, the founder and CEO of the Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society. We talk about the conservation of small mammals in the region, including the rusty spotted cat and the Indian pangolin. We also talk about the society's efforts to tackle human-wildlife conflict and snakebite mitigation in their region. I hope you enjoyed this episode and do subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you are listening on. If you are on Substack or YouTube, please consider the optional paid subscription. 30% of the revenue from this episode will be donated to the EWS to support the efforts. Now let's start the episode. Welcome to the podcast. It's a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you.
So, what got you interested in conservation?
Well, yeah, as a child, I was brought up in a place called Simhachalam, which is very close to the Eastern Ghats. It's actually a part and parcel of the Eastern Ghats, and the village I grew up is a place that's adjoining these hill ranges. So naturally, I grew up watching wildlife in the backyard, snakes, birds. We used to have leopards as well. Lot of wildlife around. So, and then I'm a 90s kid, so back like 20-25 years ago, there was no electronic media, nothing. And I come from a very poor family, so we used to only have a basic transistor, a radio, and newspapers. So I used to read some articles about environment, wildlife protection. And coincidentally, my uncle used to work as an education officer at Indira Gandhi Zoological Park here in Visakhapatnam, which is my hometown. So I used to go with him, accompany him, help him with his work. And that's how I learned about wildlife, mostly snakes, which got my attention. I've always been fascinated about snakes. So we used to give live snake shows. He would handle some non-venomous snakes, and he would talk about their conservation importance, dispelling the myths among visitors about snakes. That's when I touched them, I felt them. So the initial connect started with actually handling a live snake. So that changed my life. I realized snakes are just like any other animals. They are not bad things on earth. They have feelings, and they are just like any other wildlife we see around. Those cute panda babies or bear babies or tiger cubs, they're just like them. So that's when I started working for wildlife conservation as a volunteer in the local zoo and decided to work for lesser known species conservation, because these snakes, pangolins, small wildcats, and these are all most neglected. They don't get the conservation attention they actually deserve. So I decided I would only work for these lesser known, mostly neglected species in my backyard in the Eastern Ghats of Andhra Pradesh state. And so that's why I started Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society 10 years ago.
So, where does the Eastern Ghat range extend to?
The Eastern Ghats, it's a discontinuous chain of mountain ranges, mostly fragmented, but they start from North Odisha and along the east coastal plains. They extend down south until Tamil Nadu. And they also there is a small patch also of Karnataka, as well as the Deccan Plateau. We have a largest tiger reserve in the world, Nagarjun Sagar Sri Salem Tiger Reserve, which was earlier part of United Andhra Pradesh, but now it got split up. But still, landscape-wise, if you see, the Amarabad Tiger Reserve now in Telangana and the Nagarjun Sagar Sri Salem Tiger Reserve in India, it's a pristine patch of excellent landscape. It's vast and the largest tiger reserve that we have in India. So that is also a part of the Eastern Ghats hill ranges.
So, what makes the biodiversity of the Eastern Ghats so special, and What are the broad landscape level threats to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so as I said, these Eastern Ghats are less explored compared to other biodiversity rich hotspots in the country like the Western Ghats, the Northeast, the Himalayan Terai. So that is one thing. And also, I come from the Eastern Ghats. I was born and brought up here in this landscape. So I wanted to work here. These Eastern Ghats have rich biodiversity. Animals like Indian pangolins, which are actually the most trafficked mammal species after human trafficking in the world, they are naturally found across the region. They have immense potential for conservation. The landscape has species like Asiatic elephants, good density of Asiatic elephant populations. And like I said, the largest tiger reserve in the world in India is also in the Eastern Ghats. So this landscape makes it special. There is also, I'm not really well versed with the floral element, but there are also many species. One of them being the red sanders, which is highly endemic to a small patch of forest in southeastern Ghats of Andhra Pradesh. So, flora wise, it's pretty rich. Then, reptile fauna, we have the longest venomous snake in the world, king cobras, birds, so many. We have, like, we still don't know the status, but there's a bird called as double-banded Jordan's causa, which is presumed to be extinct, but we still don't know for sure. But it's the only species that lives in a small forest in southeastern Ghats called Lankamalleshwara Wildlife Sanctuary in Kadapa area. So it's found nowhere else. It's endemic. It's found nowhere else in the world. It's the double-banded Jordan's causa. And we also have a lot of mammal species, like I said, Asiatic elephants, Indian pangolins, smooth-coated otters, the national animal tiger, leopard, whatnot. Like we have very diverse, rich mammalian fauna as well. And the most important part coming down to the conservation conflicts, the human wildlife conflict, as most people would say. It's immense here because the landscape is naturally fragmented and there is a lot of development going on. The protected areas are few compared to other ecoregions across the world. There are reserve forests, but the protected areas are those places like wildlife sanctuaries, tiger reserves, like I said, national parks offer highest level of protection. So that is one challenge that we have across this landscape. And and then this is also some of the most important is the threats at the landscape level I've been talking about. Like we have what we call as slash and burn. It's called Podu cultivation. So the Podu cultivation locally means that tribals have the right to clear a patch of pristine forest, cultivate whatever they want, and then move on to a next patch. So the hills are denuded literally, and that is one major threat at the landscape level, apart from mining, deforestation, and indiscriminate killing, poaching for bushmeat, wildlife trafficking, and all sorts of illegal activities. So these are some of the major threats that we have to the landscape in the Eastern Ghats.
So you had just spoken about pangolins. So
Yeah,
talk about some of the Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society's work on pangolin conservation.
yeah. So pangolins are critically endangered. The Indian pangolin is endangered. So we have Indian pangolin subspecies across the Eastern Ghats region. And when I was a kid, I used to see them roaming around. I even documented road kills of pangolins, like how we now document road kills of frogs and snakes, some common species. I used to watch them. I used to to photograph them when they are run over by vehicles. So my point here is they used to be abundant 30 years ago, but not anymore. They've become so scarce. And so we have started a pangolin conservation program in collaboration with the Andhra Pradesh Forest Department 3 years ago. And mostly we are concentrating in this area called as Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam Tiger Reserve, which has a great potential for conserving the species. Now, when it comes to conservation, we may not save each and every pangolin that is being trafficked out there, but it's really important to identify the last strongholds of the species where they have a better chance of survival in the long run. And so we thought NSTR, we say, this tiger reserve at Srisailam in Andhra Pradesh has a good potential. There are pangolins. We have photo trap images of pangolins from the area. And we also have these animals digging everywhere, active burrows. I mean, the presence is felt. And we are doing this project to document their population distribution, to assess their population distribution in the area, and then also threats. What are the various threats that they have, especially in the fringe areas where the tiger reserve ends? That's where the unprotected landscapes start and where people and wildlife interact. And, we have more conflicts around these areas. So we are assessing the threats that they face. Also doing institutional capacity building on wildlife loss and wildlife crime investigation using specialized resource persons, trained resource persons, and subject experts who can teach, who can actually train these people, especially the frontline forest staff members who are out in the field encountering such incidents, conflicts, managing conflicts. So institutional capacity building, population distribution surveys, threat reduction programs by engaging local communities through awareness and interactive outreach programs. So these are the main programs, the three objectives that we have within this program. And also we brought out what really is the need of the hour, a pangolin brochure with guidelines to rescue a pangolin. Most people don't know what it is. Still, there are so many myths surrounding the species. And so we thought we should have this ready reckoner, like a guide for forest department staff, veterinarians across the region. So we brought out this brochure with guidelines, what to do if you see a pangolin, what are the legal aspects, how do you feed it, where do you keep it, and what happens in confiscation cases when the forest department confiscates from poachers. And so, because the most critical part is these animals are already dehydrated and under a lot of stress, and we need to take them to a proper facility. If not taken care of well, these animals may die. They are prone to a lot of infections as well as stress and dehydration. So we brought out this protocol that we thought is most important after working in the field and interacting with all the stakeholders. And so that was released by our chief wildlife warden and head of forest force back in 2024, in fact, this year, on the eve of World Pangolin Day. And as we move forward with this project, we intend to do more surveys and with some analysis, occupancy modeling as well, to kind of understand what are the critical factors that are governing the population distribution, what kind of habitat, canopy height, distance to river. These are all the various variables that we are trying to understand that actually determine the pangolin presence, habitat preference of Indian pangolins in and around Nagarjun Sagar Srisailam Tiger Reserve, as well as in North Andhra. So most important is to deal with the wildlife trafficking. So we thought we will also have these training programs, periodic training programs to all the stakeholders on tackling wildlife trafficking with respect to pangolins as well as other Schedule 1, Schedule 2 CITES included species in this region.
So EGWS also works on the conservation of rusty spotted cats. So
Yeah.
what makes this cat special and what is their conservation status? Where are they found across India?
Rusty spotted cats are the smallest wildcat species in the world. And what also makes them special is the fact that they are found nowhere else except in the subcontinent, India, Sri Lanka, and Nepal. So these are the only places where rusty spotted cats are found. Unlike other small cats which are distributed across Southeast Asia, even Africa, rusty spotted cats are found nowhere else. And Eastern Ghats is a great place where the species still has a potential to survive, a chance to survive. And so the rusty spotted cats are distributed across Eastern Ghats, mostly in the dry tropical forests. And they're near threatened, although on the IUCN red list of species. They also come under Schedule 1 of Indian Wildlife Protection Act 1972. So the protection is on par with the Bengal tiger. And the major threats being habitat loss due to agricultural intensification across their natural habitats, and mining, as I said, is one major threat to Eastern Ghats, and also road accidents. We've also recorded quite a few rusty spotted cat road kills across the region. So these are the main threats facing rusty spotted cats. They usually feed on small rodent, birds, frogs, and other small mammals. And deciduous patches, they prefer dry and moist deciduous forests. They prefer rocky areas or somewhere, like some places where rusty spotted cats love to live, especially during summer. And then they are found like on open grasslands as well. And we have even recorded rusty spotted cats in human-dominated landscapes, oil palm plantations, farmlands. So they are quite adaptive. They have definitely a wide range of habitat preferences, but the threats are also looming large, and there are not many programs like we have for other charismatic species. There are not many programs conserving rusty spotted cats. So we thought this species also needs some attention, and our society as an organization decided we should work for the conservation of rusty spotted cats in Eastern Ghats.
So talk about some of the work you are doing to conserve the rusty spotted cat.
Yeah, so rusty spotted cat, mostly we do camera trapping because we need to know where they are. Camera trapping is really important. And then we also conduct training programs for interested people, and sometimes forest department and local communities as well, on how to camera trap a species, same like for fishing cat conservation. So similarly, we have this camera trapping program not only for pangolins but small wildcats and otters as well. And here the most important part is we have recorded incidents of organized gangs also operating in unprotected areas where there is no legal protection to the landscape, hunting down not just rusty spotted cats, but a lot of small mammals. So we also kind of work with them, sensitize them not to kill them, perhaps also threaten them that the repercussions are quite severe. These are all protected under Wildlife Protection Act, and hunting them is legally prohibited, and it's an offense. Like they can also, so it's a lot of awareness generation apart from training programs, and then mapping their presence across the region, because we need to know which unprotected patches they live in. And ultimately, it all boils down to giving them legal protection in terms of conservation reserves or community reserves. So it's really important to know where they exist and why are they existing there. For instance, we have regularly the rusty spotted cats regularly visit plantations. So we are trying to understand why, and we feel that there are a lot of rodents inside the oil palm plantations. There's water, and there is actually during summer when it gets really dry and hot here, oil palm plantations offer shelter, cool places, and water to drink, and there is also food like rodents, abundance of rodents. So the rusty spotted cats may be taking refuge or just venturing into those plantations at night, like how we go into a grocery store and buy some stuff. They may be venturing into these places for hunting and going back. So that's when the interaction also increases when wild animals enter into human habitations. So the conflict mitigation wise, we are doing a lot of awareness programs in villages where we have identified, and also the habitat where rusty spotted cats are found. And so this is really important to kind of understand that rusty spotted cats are not normal cats. People think that these are all, they look pretty much like normal cats. For a layman, it's very, very difficult to distinguish from a distance or looking at a photograph. So human commensals, like, and even domestic cats may also cause harm, because when they're interacting in a place dominated by human habitations, there is always a chance of being killed by dogs, and hunting dogs also have a tendency to kill wildlife. So what we are doing is basically, as of now, the rusty spotted cat in the Eastern Ghats, we know they are there in the Eastern Ghats, but where and in which locations is the biggest question. Where do we have highest densities of rusty spotted cats, and which areas need protection? So at a landscape level study, we are going, visiting villages, fixing camera traps for direct evidence, gathering secondary data through interviews, and also doing a GIS analysis of the whole area, like where these cats, the potential habitat, as well as the habitat where these cats, there are also historical records that we record, that we document while going into these villages. So all these objectives, it's still a program that's running, and hopefully we'll be able to get some meaningful interpretation of the data we are collecting right now.
So your organization also works to tackle human-wildlife conflict. Talk about this a bit.
Yeah. So human wildlife conflict is a very generic term. And I know people use it, the forest departments, everyone, the press, media, people. But it's not actually, if you think deep, like if you actually assess the situation and think deep, it's not human wildlife conflict. It's basically a conflict between two different groups of humans. The identity, like for example, there is a big cat which killed a goat or a cattle, a cow or a buffalo. And then the conflict starts. The conflict starts between the local villagers, the forest department, the revenue officials, So the local villagers are always angry. There is a very, very common perception, a conventional type of thinking that these wild animals belong to the forest department, and they are they have to take care of them. It's true that all wildlife under the Wildlife Act, and forest department is like the custodians to protect the natural wealth, the natural history, the natural resource wealth of a place. So they're definitely custodians. They can come in when there is a conflict, but it doesn't just belong to them. They don't own the place, right? These are the people who live there in human dominated landscapes. So ultimately it boils down to conflicts between two human groups. The forest department is trying to protect the locals. The locals think that the tigers are killing their cattle, and the forest department is not doing anything. Same is the case with revenue officials. They blame them that they don't get proper compensation for their cattle kills. So it's actually a conflict between humans, different human groups. And conservationists go out there. These animal welfare activists also come in sometimes, and they have their own voice. They say they love wildlife, so no tiger should be harmed. And they have their own voice to raise. And local communities they have to deal with perceptive fear and loss of livestock because tigers, although see, the most important thing to understand here is the so-called human-wildlife conflict is actually a conservation conflict. Some people are vouching for conservation, protecting the species, and some people do not want any animals in their surroundings to cause any harm to them or their livestock. So these conservation conflicts are centered around perceptive fears rather than real fear. For example, we have a leopard roaming around in the area in some parts of Andhra Pradesh as we speak. And there is a huge outcry from the local communities because the leopard might attack them, the leopard might kill their cattle, the leopard might cause some damage of any sort. So it's just a perceptive fear. And the forest department has to spend a lot of resources, money, personnel to address this perceptive fear. They've been fixing camera traps, talking to the press, dispelling the myths which are being published everywhere on social media, sensitizing people, engaging NGOs like us to help, tense. That the situation is tense. So to help cool down the situation right now, they are doing their best. So to ease these tensions, there is a lot of effort being put. And when the leopard or the tiger or the sloth bear or the elephant, whatnot, if they disappear, everything gets back to normal. So it's basically a conservation conflict between different groups of human beings. And it's centered, and also the kind of damage that is being assessed is really not so much, that animals do kill livestock. And if there is a leopard roaming around and picking up some stray dogs, what exactly is the damage in terms of monetary value, if I ask? It's only the perceptive fear. And to address this perceptive fear, it's not easy. It's not as easy as I'm saying. The perceptive fear must be addressed because it's a concern. It's a security concern, a life-threatening situation they feel like. And it needs behavior change programs, which in India, I don't think is still going on. Like it didn't take off as well as it should be. And it's still in infancy. So the behavior change programs work with local communities. It uses a lot of market-based tools, outreach campaigns, change behavior to change perception towards wildlife in their native environment among local communities over a period of time. It doesn't happen overnight or in a day or two. It will take time, but these programs must be streamlined. They must be organized regularly, periodically, by engaging experts, anthropologists, conservationists, NGOs, all stakeholders. And programs must be designed. These are very tailored. One kind of an approach doesn't work in other kind of, like in another location. An approach that works for one species doesn't work for other species. So these are very tailored and site-specific. These programs must be taken on a priority basis. Then and only then we can find a long-term solution of coexisting harmoniously. We have always done that, right? If you date back in the history, humans have always coexisted with many animals, not just tigers or elephants that we are talking about. Even with the most deadliest, what people presume as snakes. People have coexisted with wildlife. We have lost that connection thanks to industrial revolution, all the technological advancements we have. And we are trying to reestablish that connection, which is not impossible, although it's very difficult. But that is the kind of approach that we have to adopt if we need a long-term solution. And So we do have many conservation conflicts coming to the Eastern Ghats. We have elephants raiding crops. We have people getting bitten by venomous snakes. We have sloth bear attacks. And we also have leopards roaming in human habitations, in and around human habitations, tigers killing livestock. So a lot of conflicts going on in the Eastern Ghats as well. And so our team at Eastern Ghats Wildlife Society, we constantly engage with local communities through behavior change programs, outreach initiatives. And so the places where we are working, we have definitely, in fact, noticed a change among local communities' perception towards even the most deadliest snakes in the world, like the king cobra. Hopefully, we'll be talking about it now. So that's the kind of change we need. In about 8 to 10 years, we are able to bring some change. They are not killing any snakes, they are calling us. And not just snakes, again, if they find some species like pangolin or any other monitor lizards, they do tell us. So it all boils down to grassroots level working with communities, which is actually the dirty work that most people don't do it. And we are so glad that we are able to do it and encourage others to help us as well.
What are some of the other initiatives taken by your society?
Yeah, so the initiatives include the King Cobra Conservation Program. Long before we initiated this program, people used to feel there are no king cobras in Andhra Pradesh. However, locals were dealing with the conflict, so-called human-snake conflict, from ages, from many years. They have been killing king cobras out of perceptive fear. Again, coming back to one tailored approach that we have, this program focused on addressing the perceptive fear, right? So king cobras rarely bite humans. We have statistics to, whereas there are also other snakes like common cobras, then Russell's vipers, common kraits, which kill thousands of people across India. And so to deal with snake bite problem and to conserve king cobras, we had to find a common connection that would benefit the community. And so we started approaching the communities first to tell them not to kill king cobras, and so call us. So they need a solution. What if they see a king cobra? The only solution they knew was to kill it because it stands out. It's a huge snake. It'll kill them. They have all these sorts of thoughts running through their mind. And due to that ignorance and perceptive fear, they have been killing these snakes. So we went in there. We thought, like, we had meetings with the local community members, the influential people in a community. We spoke with them. So their only concern was to remove the snakes from their area. If they had an option of someone coming in, catch the snake, rescue it, and release into the wild, then they wouldn't kill it far away from the human habitations. So that's all they needed. This was their concern. It's a security concern, a life-threatening situation, as they presumed, as they thought it would be. We said, fine. So we'll send our guys. We'll also train some of your so-called snake killers. They always had someone who used to kill snakes from each village, 1 or 2 people who are very brave or employed by the local communities to kill snakes. So we thought we actually came up with an idea where we could train these snake killers into snake rescuers. And they agreed, and we could train quite a few people in these villages on how to rescue snakes from human habitations, when to rescue a snake, when not to rescue a snake. And that's how we could bring about this change over the last 8 years. Now, nobody would kill a king cobra. In fact, they would only call us and say that the snake is out there. We are just observing it. And we will call you only if it enters into our human habitations, like into our house, literally, or in our backyard, or into a place where we cannot allow the snake to kind of be there for some time, like a very close place to where they are living, their farmlands, their backyards. So in many cases, We don't rescue the snake as we speak right now. They only call us, they send us some pictures and photos of king cobras because they've realized over the last 8 years, not out there to kill them, their children, or to take vengeance, right? So this is how we could bring about a change. And then there are also incidents where we reached to the community and explained them that king cobras are not any other snake. For a layman, a good snake is a dead snake. So everybody thinks king cobras are bad like all other snakes. We said, okay, for a moment, let's think all other snakes are bad, but here is the good guy, the king cobra, because we have shown them photos and some of the rescue incidents we have come across. We saw king cobras feeding on Russell's vipers and common cobras, the spectacled cobras. So we show those videos, we show them live to the local communities and say that king cobras help control other snake populations. So if there are king cobras in your village, it means that there are many snakes in the area and the king cobras are helping you by feeding on those snakes, like how a tiger feeds on a deer. What if all the tigers are wiped out? The deer population will increase. So similarly, if king cobras are killed, the other snake populations in the area increase. And so they started believing us there because seeing is believing. They have seen in many rescue situations where king cobras were feeding other snakes, including other venomous and non-venomous snakes. And they themselves confirmed that they don't have any king cobra bite deaths in their village as far as they could remember. And so this is kind of an approach. It's a tailored approach. We thought how to kind of convince these communities. If you go out to them and say this is a Schedule 1 species, you cannot kill it, penalized, it will be like a great offense, you will be under the, you'll go into the jail, or if you threaten them, it may work for once or twice, let me tell you. Threatening definitely works for once or twice, but over the long term, it won't. It won't. Like they may threaten a person to not kill a snake or a wild animal until a rescue team arrives for once or twice or a few times, but not forever. So you always have to work towards establishing this kind of harmonious coexistence, building tolerance over a period of time towards any species. And that requires programming. It's called conservation programming. It can have behavior change initiatives. It can have ecological research, which is conservation oriented. It can have so many elements: education, outreach, working with multiple stakeholders, creating conservation reserves. So the conservation programming is not everybody is competent of doing. It needs training. It needs volunteering with organizations like us. And this is where I think we are really proud to bring about this change. Our state forest department has also been supporting all our initiatives right from the beginning. And so we are so glad that we could bring about this change. And finally, we have these places where king cobras, we can confidently say that a majority of the killings are avoided. It's impossible to avoid all the killings because somewhere in the nook and cranny, like people do still kill snakes, king cobras. And we are also a small team. We cannot cover the entire landscape. So it is happening, and we do have a lot of more work to do. So, but still, that said, we have rescued more than 100 king cobras in the last couple of years. A milestone in the conservation history of this region. We used to have 100 king cobra killings back like 10 years ago, but now we have 100 king cobra rescues. So this is how a behavior change program works. So, and then if you really want to bring about a change, you need to focus on a very small area first and keep expanding the program to other areas. That said, you also have to keep in mind the resources you have, especially the financial resources and the human resource. So that's how we started doing this initiative. And I'm so happy that We are also working on smooth-coated otters. Basically, we started only with surveying their presence. Again, we need to know exactly where they are. We know there are smooth-coated otters in Krishna, Godavari, but where? We need to know those exact locations. We need to know how many are there in a group. We need to know what are the local threats. Now, threats can be quite local. In some area, there can be retaliatory killing, while in some other areas, there could be something else. So we need to know the species, the exact conservation status of a species in an area, in various locations. So we are doing that program. We are only kind of at a very initial stage to assess the conservation status of smooth-coated otters in our river currently. We are working with, again, the Tiger Reserve officials at NSTR to kind of study the population distribution of otters. And we also have programs running on fishing cats, mostly threat reduction. Conservation is about threat reduction and creating safe havens for species. It could be corridors, it could be conservation reserves, it could be new national parks, or just a private sanctuary if you can work with communities. And so that we are doing right now on fishing cats as well. And there is a lot of wildlife interpretation programs that we are doing with the forest department. Our consultancy services are being used by the forest department of Andhra Pradesh for designing various exhibits, dioramas, interactive panels, thought-provoking exhibits for displaying basic information in a very creative way to sensitize the general public about the importance of native wildlife conservation and the threats they face and what they can do. Most important is what someone can do to save wildlife. One of the aspects that we are currently working, and so that's about it. Yeah.
So, talk about how individuals can contribute to your society.
Yeah. So individuals can always contribute not to my society, but to any society, to the government as well. See, the Constitution says conservation of natural reserves, the natural resources of India it's a fundamental duty of every citizen. It's the Constitution says it. I'm not saying it. Conservation of natural resources is the fundamental duty of every citizen in India. It could be a river, it could be a species, it could be a habitat. All these natural resources must be conserved. And if everyone realizes it, they can do anything in their capacity, like volunteering in our organization, helping forest department with camera trapping, whatever. Like that's the most important thing, that make sure that you do something on the ground. You have to be actionable, have some actionable objectives. Don't say that I did an awareness program. That can also, or at your level, you can do an awareness program or click a picture of an animal and post it on social media and say that I'm doing conservation. Conservation is a different level. You cannot be a conservationist by talking to a group of people or clicking animal pictures. That's your contribution to conservation, but that's not conservation. Conservation is what I've been talking about for the past 30, 40 minutes or so. And so people can help us with their services. If somebody is good at doing awareness program, they can help us. Somebody is good at learning new things like camera trapping or GIS or GPS, how to operate on a GPS. And there are also technological innovations nowadays. Drones are being flown over forests. And most importantly, the threat reduction programs with local communities. If they want to learn what conservation looks like on the ground, they can always come and join our society. They can contribute, right? And there are also people like elsewhere, if you see, there are people like donors. People can also give out funds. People who think that we are competent are supporting us. People who believe in our capability, people who believe in our competency, people who believe that we can make a difference are So this is one way that you can also engage in conservation. You don't have to get your hands dirty, but if you can give out contributions, that will also help. And yeah, so that's how people can help our NGO.
That was the final question I had for you today. Thank you so much for taking time out for this.
You're most welcome. Thank you very much. Seeing your podcast, wide range of speakers, excellent initiative. Thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you.